This is a really tragic story. And I know there's a lot of jokes. I was at a comedy show this weekend and there were a lot of jokes to be had. But in terms of the actual details, it is very, very sad. So Alec Baldwin, that we know, the actor, he was on the set of a movie called Rust that they were filming down in New Mexico. Now, during the course of that filming, Alec Baldwin, what we know as of this morning, was pointing a gun at the camera. He was rehearsing a scene in which the actor points a gun directly at the camera. Now, during the course of pointing, and we don't know if he fired it, if he had triggered discipline, whatever, we have no idea. The gun, unsurprisingly, went off during the course of that, and it killed the director of cinematography, Halyna Hutchins, and wounded another member of the crew. Now, there's been a lot, and there should be now, scrutiny of what the hell was going on here.
Yeah.
And one of the key things that a lot of people are taking a look at is that the film set had previous accidental gun discharges. People on the crew expressed concerns, let's put this up from the New York Times, over gun mishaps and working conditions just days before the shooting. So there were at least 2 accidental gun discharges on that set days before that Alec Baldwin fatally shot this cinematographer. The discharges occurred on October 16th, so like 9 days ago, the former crew member said, prompting a complaint to a supervisor about the safety practices on the set right outside of Santa Fe. The crew members asked not to be named because of, their future employment in the industry, and I can't believe that they're afraid about being retaliated against after they complained about, gun discharges, which ended up killing somebody. But several workers quit just hours before the fatal shooting over complaints about unpaid work and working conditions on the production. Now, remember, this also comes during the midst of there ended up not being a strike, but IATSE, which represented many of the people who actually work in the film industry, they had been saying that given the backlog of production, they were working 12, 16-hour days, being treated like garbage, not even getting paid necessarily what they needed to by people with streaming and all of that. They renegotiated, I believe, some sort of interim deal, and that's what they're working towards. But this highlights the fact that on the movie industry sets themselves, working conditions have been very sparse. And whenever you have that and you make it really intense, then accidents can slip through the cracks. And clearly, this was just a confluence of a terrible series of events. Now, what we're really learning from most of this is from affidavits which are being filed in New Mexico in terms of search warrants. So let's put this up there. And again, this is what we know. According to the people who are on the set, and spoke under penalty of perjury to the sheriff's office there in Santa Fe. Alec Baldwin was told that the gun in the shooting was safe. Now, according to the affidavit, they shouted "cold gun," which is supposed to indicate that a gun does not have any live rounds in it. Now, when Baldwin fired the gun, what happened is that they did not know live rounds were inside the prop gun. But again, this also raises a lot of questions from people who I've spoken to who are gun safety experts and more, which is that if this is a gun which is firing blanks, now blanks have injured people in the past, but in general, guns that are used on set which can fire blanks are not supposed to be able to even fire live ammunition. So how did this gun get there in the first place? And the second thing is that armorers who work with movie productions, Krystal, said that there should never have even been a gun with live ammo there in the first place.
Right.
And you would presume also there were 3 guns that are apparently kept outside on a table, that the safety people were checking both the chamber and whether the gun had any ammo in the first place.
Basic.
Yeah, there should be, series of checks going on here with the guns. Now, I don't know a lot about guns, but I've used it before.
Especially after you had 2 accidental discharges
right, so
already.
What is happening?
So, right, and another red flag that they raised, because within the industry, the use of guns, the way you handle them, the safety protocols that you have to go through are very stringent. You all may recall back in the 90s, Brandon Lee was killed by, there was actually a live round that was stuck in the chamber.
That's right.
On the film set of The Crow. And I think especially after that, they really beefed up their protocol to make sure that guns would be handled safely when they're used in a filming production like this. And another red flag, this is from that New York Times piece, 6 experts in the use of firearms on film or television sets said it was very unusual and it was against protocol for an assistant director to hand the gun to an actor. And that's what they're saying happened, that the assistant producer handed the gun to Baldwin, said, cold gun. They say it should be the armorer who is on the set that should be handling the weapons and in charge of them from beginning to end. So even the fact that it was the assistant producer who handed the gun to Baldwin, they described as a red flag. But yeah, the fact that you had crew resigning, 6 crew members quitting on that day, tells you that this thing was a massively unfairly. A lot of the concerns that they raised are concerns that we heard about when IATSE was considering, when they authorized that strike as part of their contract negotiations, things like incredibly long days. And then they're not being booked hotel rooms. So they're having to drive after this long day, having to drive an hour back, I think, to Santa Fe. And so you're exhausted, you're falling asleep on the road, you're coming in tired. And guess what? When that is the case, horrific mistakes can ultimately happen. Horrific accidents can happen. So obviously we're still learning all the details here. One of the things that is complicated as well is that Baldwin is not only an actor, he's also a producer.
Yeah, and so he's involved in the management and should have been aware of the safety issues. He claims that that's not the case.
Yeah, and look, I don't know enough about the film industry to know when you have a high-level actor like that, do you just get a producer credit, but you're not really involved in the, in the management.
I think it has something to do with money distribution too. But,
and of course, the producers do say that, listen, we take safety very seriously, and we didn't know about these issues, et cetera, et cetera. But clearly there was a lot going on there, and it was a low-budget film and ended in absolute disaster. It's really hard to fathom how this ultimately occurred. Like you said, how did a gun with a live round, like why was that ever on the set at all? How would that happen? Because there's no scenario on a film set where you would have a real gun with a live round. So why was that ever there in the first place? It's just hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah, it really is. And the other thing here is that the way they describe it is really unclear, which is that Alec Baldwin, again, this is per the New York Times, and in terms of what they're saying happened, was pointing the gun at the camera. Now, it doesn't say that he pulled the trigger, right? It just says, rehearsing a scene, pointing a revolver toward the camera lens when the gun suddenly went off. Now again, it could be, look, the most likely scenario is he did pull the trigger.
That he pulled the trigger,
But it also doesn't say that that's necessarily the case. And, things have happened. It's possible, like you said previously, it could be that there could have been, live ammo that was like lodged inside the gun. But really what we're learning is with the people who walked off the set, 6 people who walked off the set, 2 accidental gun discharges already. The chain of custody of the gun itself should have been handed by the armorer instead of the assistant director. There clearly was something going on the set. And in terms of who's really responsible for what happened here, it seems to be that whoever was in charge of checking those guns and the safety protocols and more are ultimately the people responsible, which led to this terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
And that's just the case here.
One last chilling detail is that the movie is actually about an accidental killing, which is just, another horrible and like I said, chilling detail. And with The Crow, when Brandon Lee was killed, that movie is also about a death and someone who's murdered then rises from the dead. So very, very weird and horrible circumstances. In terms of, there's obviously an ongoing investigation. So far, no charges filed. But that's not definitive. You could imagine if there was some sort of reckless criminal negligence, you could imagine potentially a manslaughter charge, but we're a long way from that, and the investigation is ongoing. Of course, Alec Baldwin and everyone else says that they are cooperating with the authorities, so we'll keep you updated there.
There you go.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it, you get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.